and you join me here on the Government of Western Australia stand at SPE Offshore Europe 2023, joined by a member of that Parliament, Simone McGurk. Afternoon and welcome to Aberdeen, welcome to Scotland, welcome to SPE Offshore Europe. You were here yesterday, you're here today. Talk us through what you've achieved so far and your hopes for the rest of today and your time at Offshore Europe.
The relationship between the West Australian industry and that in Scotland, as well as Norway and the other jurisdictions that are represented at the conference, is well established. We've got a very mature and growing, actually, oil and gas industry in Western Australia. There's still big reserves that are being accessed in our state, and so to understand how we continue to meet the needs of the current industry and the industry that's going to be there for a while we transition to net zero is something that our government is focused on, and I know that other governments here in the UK as well as around the world are as well.
Now, I'm aware that in detail you are a Minister for Training and Water, but we'll come on to training in a couple of moments. First of all, talk us through just what that industry looks like currently, the energy sector in Australia.
Look, particularly the oil and gas industry in Western Australia is still a big employer for us, and we export, I think, 11% of our gas through LNG to the rest of the world. So, we comprise 11% of the world markets, actually. So we're a big exporter of LNG, and it's a big employer for us. Adjacent to that, in the resources sector, we've got a big mining industry. And that pulls on a lot of our expertise and skills across the industry in our state. So if you also look at energy, we've got huge reserves of sun and also wind, and we're also looking at hydrogen. So accessing all of those industries in renewables and then the battery storage as well as the transmission. So very similar issues. Still very healthy reserves of oil and gas, but we need to transition to renewables. How do we do that? How do we make sure it's as seamless as possible?
And talking of that transition and into renewables in Western Australia, how important is that to the Government of Western Australia, and how do you see that panning out over the next 50 years? It's 50 years of Offshore Europe here today in Aberdeen in Scotland. That next 50 years, what does it look like for you?
Well, we've made commitments as a government to transition to net zero by 2050, both at a state and a federal level, and also at a state level to make sure we've got interim targets, particularly in government itself. And we're moving away from coal, for instance. We had a reliance on coal for the south of our state, which is where the vast majority of our population lives. So we're moving away from coal. We'll still have a use for gas, and as I said before, we're a big exporter of gas, and we'll continue to do that. My job particularly is to make sure that we've got the skills to do what we do now, as well as to be able to meet the needs of that transition into the future, whether that is into renewables, whether it's in storage, whether it's in transmission, as well as make sure we can do all of that and supply the skill needs for the adjacent industries that move around that, whether that's for mining, for instance, construction, infrastructure builds. So, and we've also, I'm here in the UK, we've got an AUKUS agreement, so we've got defence requirements that will come up into the future. So a lot of these people are portable, highly mobile, they move around, not only within those industries in our state, but as we're demonstrating here today, internationally. So we need to make sure that we understand what those requirements are for our state, as well as what's happening within industry internationally, because the reality of the workforce is that they're quite mobile.
Now, you are the Minister for Training and Water, so talking specifically about training then, here on the Government of Western Australia stand at SPE Offshore Europe, what opportunities can people come along and talk to the team here about?
Well, first of all, it's a question of expertise, so that's the main issue that we want to understand how other jurisdictions, for instance here in northern Scotland, in Aberdeen, are dealing with those issues, similarly for Norway. So there's opportunities to learn just how other jurisdictions are dealing with all of these challenges. But also there's a big skills exchange that happens internationally. This is a mobile workforce, as I said. We have got huge skill demands here in Western Australia, but across the world. We're seeing the demand for skilled labour. Every jurisdiction, particularly in the Western world, is facing that. So how can we make sure that people understand they could maybe come and spend some time in Western Australia. We have a very competitive labour market, great cost of living, and a beautiful lifestyle. But I think the main message is that we want to learn from similar jurisdictions how to companies, industries, economies manage reliable energy supply while we transition to a cleaner energy future.
Thank you for your time. Clear opportunities there with the Government of Western Australia, both today and in the future, when it comes to training. Thank you for your time.